I was hoping that while we social distance, we could maybe start to come in a little closer away from the traffic and a little closer to this fountain. Thanks for coming. My name is Tracy, by the way, and I'm organizing this event with EESHA Williams, who's standing over here, and Emma Allen and Lisa CHEN, who are standing over here to this side. And both of these ladies are going to speak tonight, and when Lisa speaks in the pink shirt, she's welcoming any questions. I feel like I can't really describe her bio, but I would say she's very knowledgeable and experienced in educating people on Asian American culture, Pacific Islander culture. So I look forward to that, and hopefully people will have some questions for her. So my name's Tracy, and back in March, I wasn't experienced at organizing it all, and I was imagining that there might be some kind of a rally in response to the extreme violence that happened down in Georgia, where so many women and some men were murdered. And even before that, when the former president was making so many comments calling the current virus the China virus, while he was simultaneously saying that it wasn't dangerous and that it was under control. And meanwhile, there's been so much death and illness at proportions that I don't think we've ever experienced before across this globe. So basically, he just negated his own responsibility that he needed to take for this global crisis from our Oval Office. So in response to all that, I was feeling disappointed that so many activists were in town that had not planned anything to make this dialogue louder about the increasing violence toward Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders since the virus sped up in our country. So I realized eventually, well, I think that I need to be the change I wish to see in the world. So I took this little leap to organize a gathering here. And so we had a vigil in March. And what we did is we learned about the humanity behind the names of the victims. And many of us that gathered, we shared the personal details of those who were murdered. And I think many, or maybe even all of us, felt a deep connection with these victims because we had similar passions, similar families, and values. And I feel like it was a nice event. I feel like even though I'm very inexperienced in organizing, the most valuable thing is presence and how many people showed up from this community. So thank you again for your presence. But what I am experienced in is creating space and holding space for community and for transformation. So last time we held a vigil, and the humanity of all the victims of that violence in Georgia, that was a common denominator for us because we learned so much about those people. And then there was this other more elemental common denominator, and it was fire. We all lit candles, and of all the traditions that I've become familiar with over the years and in rituals, it seems like fire is involved in all of them. It's the sustenance of rituals, and it's a transformative element. So we had that common denominator there. And then there is a reason why I like this park so much, and part of it is because of this fountain. And usually when we gather here, we gather in a circle. And a circle is an ideal symbol or felt experience of unity, of connection, because we're all facing each other, and it's not easy for anyone to turn away. We all can be seen. So we're also creating a sacred space here when we're facing each other. So we have that experience of unity, but then there's this water, and because the trees are leafed out, we can't see the river. Guanajuato, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but the Connecticut River is right there. So we have that water. So this is another elemental common denominator. And part of the reason why it's a common denominator is if we contemplate how much of our bodies are made of water and how much of the globe is covered in water, this is substantial, this element, one of the major elements. So this, I'm tying it all together in my head, or I have been tying it together with a Japanese businessman, Masaru Emoto, who maybe many people are familiar with his New York Times bestseller. I think it was back in the 90s or the early 2000s. He wrote a book, he wrote many books on the wisdom of water, and the first bestseller was The Hidden Messages in Water. Water in the combination of H2O, the molecules associated with H2O, they're very flexible, the shape of the molecules, and then they can like bind easily or pick up things easily. So water carries a lot of things. We live on the edge of town, and water is carrying waste out of this town. I feel like we have a responsibility to also cultivate certain vibrations and wisdom and loving kindness in the water. Water carries vibrations, and it's affected by our consciousness. Water has wisdom. And so what Masaru Emoto, what inspired his first book, is that he did experiments with water. He had vessels of water, and he exposed some of them to sacred language, to beautiful images, and phrases like "I love you" and "thank you." And then he also had some other vessels of water. In a controlled environment, he exposed them to images of destruction and chaotic loud music and language of hatred. And then, in the controlled environment, he brought the water to just freezing so that he could take pictures of the crystals that formed. So the water that was exposed to the chaos and the hatred, basically a lack of unity, a lack of harmony, those crystals looked fragmented, they looked shadowy, and there was nothing much to say other than that. Then the water that was exposed to the phrases "I love you" and "thank you" and the beautiful images, the sacred language, those crystals, they formed like beautiful gems. They looked like snowflakes, they looked like yantras, like sacred geometry. So I think what Masaru Emoto was expressing is the potential of, especially if we contemplate how much water is in our bodies and on this globe, the potential or the impact there is when we engage with beauty and unity and community and things that are sacred. So even though we live in this little hub, this tiny town, I feel like we're positioned really well to have an impact on the wider region. Partly because so many of us have relationships. I think all of us have relationships with people outside of here, and we have water. So what we engage with here, the activism and building community, the experience of unity, it's being absorbed by the water. The vibrations are always flowing in the river and going beyond this little hub. So I just want to say that also that May is Asian American and Pacific Islander History Month or Heritage Month, and so that's part of the reason why I wanted to bring in a little bit of that story of Masaru Emoto in his book. And I have been learning ever since March, when I decided to organize the initial gathering. I have been learning so much, not only about the extent of violence and hatred to Asian Americans here on this land, Pacific Islanders here on this land, and the lack of justice in response to it. I've also been learning and meeting more of the people in our community and learning about their lives, and I feel like I'm gaining more of a sense of belonging here by engaging more in those relationships and learning about people's lives. And I hope that just being here helps people feel more of a sense of belonging as well. So I hope that feels like a good context, like a sacred context, and a feeling of unity and belonging as we go forward. And I want to pass the mic. And first we'll have Emma Allen speak. And Emma is a student at University of Vermont. and I believe you study political science, but I'm going to let her also introduce herself. And then afterwards, when Lisa speaks, she's going to welcome some questions. So Emma, would you like to come on over?
Thank you, Tracy. So my name is Emma. I am a lifelong resident of Vernon, Vermont. Can you hear me? How about now? Good? Okay. So thank you, Tracy. My name is Emma Allen. I am a lifelong resident of Vernon, Vermont. I am a current student at the University of Vermont. I'm majoring in political science and double minoring in Spanish and critical race and ethnic studies. So first off, I want to thank you all so much for coming. This community has always been so supportive, and that's one of the things that I love about Vermont. It isn't always easy to live here as a minority, though. Vermont is one of the least diverse states in the country. 94% of Vermonters are white. In contrast, only about 12,000 Vermonters consider themselves Asian or Pacific Islander. One of the privileges of being white is that you don't have to think about the fact that you're white. I probably think about the fact that I'm not white almost every day, and I have for a long time. The first time that I was called a racial slur was in kindergarten. Think about that. Kindergarten. That's a really young age to experience something like that. And I'd like to say that it hasn't made an impact on me, but it has. And that's why I'm here today. I consider myself lucky to have not experienced hate during this pandemic because of my physical features or because of where my family comes from. There's no reason that this should be lucky. This should be normal. Unfortunately, for many others, this hasn't been the case. Since the start of the pandemic, over 4,000 hate crimes against Asian Americans have been reported in the U.S. In California alone, over 800 COVID-related hate crimes were committed against Asian Americans in just a 3-month period. Thankfully, Congress members like our very own Peter Welch have been pushing for the Asian American hate crime bill, which leaders hope will lessen racism towards the AAPI community. What many people don't realize is just how much Asian Americans have done for this country. This month, we celebrate Asian American and Pacific Islander heritage, and for good reason. A lot of people think that Asian Americans haven't been in the U.S. for long. That's just not true. One of the first established communities of Asian Americans living in North America settled almost 300 years ago off the coast of New Orleans. Chinese immigrants built the Transcontinental Railroad. Chinese physicist Chen Wu helped develop atomic science with the Manhattan Project. What about Duke Kahanamoku, 5-time Olympic gold medalist and actor? Or Jerry Yang, the Taiwanese-American co-founder of Yahoo? Or Stephen Chow, co-founder of YouTube? What about the Filipino labor workers who would eventually be joined by activists like Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta? Or Yuri Kochiyama, who hosted civil rights activists in her own home and would eventually go on to work with leaders like Malcolm X. This is what Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month should be about, not whether or not our community members will be attacked. So I'm asking you all to celebrate the AAPI community this month and every month. Support local Asian businesses, support your fellow community members, and learn something about Asian Americans and their culture. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. I wasn't going to, turn on my phone going. Can you hear me now? Alright. So my name is Lisa Chen. I'm taking off my mask because some of you might recognize me from Pandapa many years ago. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am a Chinese immigrant. I came here to Brattleboro in 1989. I did not speak a word of English. Okay, I lied. I could say yes, no, thank you, and sorry, wrong number. I had to learn that because we keep having people calling at home and I just have no clue what they were saying. I went to UMass Amherst and SIT, and I have two bachelor degrees in Chinese literature and Japanese language, and 2 master degrees in one is MBA, the other one is master in private and public security, and concentration on the global and domestic homeland security. It's a little weird. My experience, I worked for the FBI for 17 years as a language analyst. The cases I've worked on, from counterterrorism, counterintelligence, to human trafficking and Asian organized crime. So I have a lot of experience in dealing with Asian communities. And when I was in Washington, D.C., I also dealt with the congressmen in Asian Heritage Month events. And also I was a board member for the Federal Asian Pacific American Islander federal employees. So, now let's talk about Asian Heritage Month. Does anybody know here, like, why do we have Asian Heritage Month? Probably not. Okay. In 1972, actually, it starts with only 10 days long celebration. 1978, a joint congressional resolution established the Asian Pacific American Heritage Week. It was to celebrate what Asian has done. And the reason they choose May for 2 main reasons. One is the first Japanese immigrant in the United States on May 7th, 1843. And 2, the contribution of Chinese workers to build the Transcendental Railroad, completed on May 10, 1869. Those are 2 major marks, and that's why we celebrate Asian Heritage Month in May. Now, in 1992, the Congress decided to extend it, the whole week, into a whole month celebration, because we Asian, we have a lot of people here, so we really, really need to celebrate. Now, according to 2019 Census Bureau, do you know how many Asian people in the United States? The number is going to shock you. 22.9 million of Asians living in the United States. And then we have 1.6 million of native Hawaiians and other Pacific Islanders. And you ask, what Asian has done? Okay, let's talk about military. 2.5% of Asians among those 22.9 millions, they are in the military. 7.2 native Hawaiians, they are in the military in 2019. I'm sorry, when I get nervous, my Chinese English comes out. I like to say Chinglish, but my friend says, well, people might say it's not politically correct. They might be upset about it. But you know what? I'm Chinese. I can say it. So, thank you. Now, now we're talking about the status. I was doing a little research for this speech, and come to my surprises that, besides, most people know Chinese, like we do a lot of finance, attorneys, and doctors, right? I was surprised we actually have a quarterback coach at the USC who is a Chinese. Think about that, Chinese people playing football. Wow. With a whole bunch of big guys, and we Chinese people usually are supposed to be little tiny ones. And his name is Warm Cho. And he was a coordinator since January 2001 for USC, quarterback. And the second famous person who has done Asian, I was surprised as well, because most people like Asian who are politicians, I only know from DC. I didn't know small towns people can accept us. This Korean woman, her name was Margaret Abed Koda, and she was sworn in on January 6, 2009. And then another famous Asian is a famous actor too. Do you guys watch Law and Order? B.D. Wong. Yes, he's my favorite. Yeah, he's always like this cool, calm, Asian. Really, people really think that's how we are. Now, if you talk to me, so we talk about what Asian has contributed. We have contributed a lot. We just don't talk about it. Why? Because that's part of our culture. I'm a Chinese. I cannot represent all Asian. Why? Because Asian includes people from all different countries. First, like Philippines, Korea, North Korea and South Korea, China and Taiwan. People from those countries. I'm Chinese. I'm from Taiwan, and our culture is still a little bit different. So, but in general, Asian culture, we are very quiet, peaceful, and in our culture, it's only we, no I. So you don't see us going out there, going, oh, I hate the hate crime. Let's do something. That's why, I really appreciate you all coming out, being angry for us. We Chinese people, we're not really angry, but we feel sad for those people who are ignorant because they don't know what they're missing. And part of our culture is we try to do things quietly, love and peace and understanding. We try to make people understand who we are and what we do. Let me give you a little example about my own experience for discrimination and how I handle it. Let's start from one of the cases I did when I was in American Samoa, sex trafficking. I don't know how much you know about American Samoa. 99.9% of the people there are American Samoans. That 1.1% are immigrants, and most of them are Asian women who were sent there for sex trafficking. When I got there, my colleague who was already working on the case warned me about this discrimination. They said, when you go to the store, they're going to be watching you, okay, and just staring at you and follow you everywhere you go just because you're Asian. I go, yeah, watch me. Without a doubt, we went there, and people were following us. Well, what did I do? First thing comes to my mind is why they do that, because they don't know me and they are probably afraid of me. They don't know what I'm doing. So I just walk up to all the salesperson who was following me. There were about 6 of them, and they were bigger than me. I just go, hey, how you doing? I am just fun to say, and I'm here just to shop because my luggage got lost. And the girl's just going, oh, great, this Asian woman is talking to me. I don't know what she wants. So I gathered her and I just said, can you help me finding clothes and all that? And once we did that, I asked them to stay with me. And then I asked them to help me to dress myself, trying to dress like the way they do. They have like this piece of cloth and you're supposed to wrap it up. So I have people waiting there for me, and I come out and just do my little catwalk and turn and go, what do you guys think? By the time I finish it, all the salesperson first was hesitant talking to me. Everybody was like coming over and started asking me questions. Well, by the time we left, people lined up and going, bye! This is how I deal with that, because people don't understand. People are scared. All you have to do is just show respect and love. When I was in Louisiana, living with my dad for the summer, I got mad with my dad, so I decided to walk on the mall, going home. But the area we live in was a black neighborhood, which there's a lot of crime there. It was a dark alley. I just walk up to this black guy. I say, can you walk me through this alley because I'm scared? Now, people might say, oh my God, why'd you do that? I said, because I believe in the bottom of people's heart, everybody are nice, are kind. You just have to give them a chance to show it. Now, Margaret, the mayor from California, said one thing. She said, after receiving a racially email, she said, I know that when times are tough, it is easy to blame others. This is true. The hate crime happens, it's like the COVID. They were blaming Chinese, they're blaming other people. It's not because really hate. They just need something to really hate because they don't have that knowledge or they don't have that experience interacting with different race. So what do we do as a person, as a community? We go out there and we share our experience with them. We don't just go, yeah, it's bad. We only escalate that. For me, I went through a lot. One of the main reasons I quit the FBI was because of racial discrimination within. Do I hate them? No, I don't. Why? Because that's only small amount of people. And there are still good people out there. Why did before I joined the FBI, I got a job offer as an executive to go to overseas. I will be overseeing, a lot of people and a couple $1 million every month. But I decided to join the FBI and give me a real little amount of salary. Why? Because I always tell people, my family came to the United States with a dream. And this country helped me to make my dream come true. And I want to give back. So no matter what kind of stuff I went through, I always think what this country has been providing me. Free education. And, I still encounter a lot of nice people. When I first came to the United States, I went to high school. I have to tell you, I was the only Asian, the only non-white in Brattleboro Union High School. It was very difficult during lunchtime because I go there and I didn't know what to do because the moment I walk in, everybody just go, huh. And I have people cursing at me. My language was so bad. I actually had to go to my classmate, write it down. I went to that person and said, hey, do you mind spell that for me? B-I-T-C-H. And I went to my classmate. They spent 1 hour teaching me about swear words so I know how to deal with it. But did that bother me? No. Why? Because I know I'm an immigrant. I came here, this is your home. I'm trying to be part of the community. So I suck it up and just try my best letting people know that I mean no harm. I'm here because I want to be part of this place. When I did sex trafficking cases, I was talking to someone about those. When I first came, I dated a couple people. And they see me as an Asian. Some of them would say, wow, your English so good. I go, yeah, well, but I'm Chinese, so I should not be able to speak English. Or they would ask me, do you know how to do massage? Or does your family own a laundromat? I said, no, but we own a restaurant. So there were times, one time we had to go to Virginia for this takedown. There were 8 massage parlors. Now we work with local PDs and ICE. Now ICE guys I know because I work on the case with them, but local PD doesn't know me. And I forgot my rain jacket, who says FBI, the big ones. So, but I had to go to all different locations to interview the subjects. And the last one I went in, the police look at me going, why are you here? Thinking I was one of the girls. I had to flash my card and go, sorry FBI. So they just let me in. And the attitude totally changed. It's like, wow, you think Asians won't be part of law enforcement or like we're just supposed to be working in a restaurant? Speaking of which, several years after I worked for the Bureau, I come back home a couple times to help out at Panda North because I really miss people here and I miss talking to the customers. So this one customer was like, where you been? I said, I've been living in New York. They go, oh yeah, which restaurant are you working at? Talking about stereotype. I say, no, the restaurant is called the FBI. So, like, really? Where? Well, So those are my experience outside. But do I get angry? No. Am I sad? Well, it's part of life. How do I deal with it? Well, I smile and let it go. Why? If I keep that anger in me, then we won't be able to have this harmony place, because I'm going to be hating every single white people come up to me because some of you discriminated me. It's not right. So when we talk about hate crimes, I really just want to say, let's stop pointing fingers. Let's just stop hating. Let's just try to understand each other and get our facts straight. The Chinese COVID, really, is it really from China? Do we really know? No. News nowadays don't give us the full pictures. Only just small amount. I know why, because there were several cases I worked on and I saw news, I go, oh, that's not how it happened. But I can't talk about it, because if I talk about it, I'll have to kill you. So, and now we want to talk about FBI last year's hate crime. Now most of the time you see hate crimes, they only talk about the white people beat down the Asian, or you'd be surprised that last year they had about 7,103 single bias indicated in about 8,550 victims. Now 0.9% is about gender. 57.6% of those crimes were about race, ethnicities, and ancillary bias. And of 6,406 no offenders, now here comes the shocking part. 54.5% were white. 23.9% are Black or African Americans. And then 14.6% race unknown. I can tell you that probably are Asian like me. So racism doesn't happen just because of white race. We are all human. We are all the same. It's not about one race hating another or anything. It's about you don't understand, so you're just trying to keep your little distance. I was playing an online game with a bunch of people from Eastern European. I say I'm a Chinese, but I'm a U.S. citizen. They go, how did that happen? I go, well, because this is America. America is not about race. America is made out of immigrants. It's about a dream, about a belief. So I said, well, that's why I am here in the United States. When I went to China with my U.S. passport, they go, oh, you're Chinese, how come you're holding a U.S. passport? I said, because I am American. I'm a damn proud American. So, forgive me, when I get nervous, my brain freezes and I'm shaking. And I'm jumping places. Now, talk about racism at workplace. I'm Asian. I'm female. First thing comes to people's minds, well, they're very submissive and they must be quiet. Well, sorry, not in this case. I was very lucky to have a great teacher that when I was learning the language, she taught me how to survive. So when I went to the bureau, when I see something, I gotta say something. It was a little difficult for my supervisors because that little Asian chick, okay, she's big, and she is telling me, no, this is not right. I said, well, you know what? Too bad, tough. It's really hard for me because I'm living in two cultures. Whenever something happens, I try to talk to my parents about it, and I say, I don't know what to do. My parents says, well, you just gotta put your head down and moving on. And so, people will someday come to an understanding. But my American teacher says, no, you have the voice. It's your right. And then the Buddhism goes, we have to forgive and forget and move on. I had to struggle with that through my entire life in the United States. And I'm still struggling. But I still have no anger against anyone. Because I know the bottom of everyone's heart that we all meant well. We are all as one here in this country. So I still have hope. And they do have some ignorant people. When I was in BC, I was invited to join the Rolling Thunder, the rally. I don't know how many people you know about Rolling Thunder. No, yay! Yeah, if you're a veteran, most of you know. It started with Harley Davidson. So you said, all the motorists from around the United States, most of them are veterans, will go there and ride their bikes, go to the wall. My buddy, who is a Chinese American, born and raised here in this country, he took me to the wall to visit his friends on the wall. And then this tour guide says, look, during the Vietnam War, we have so many soldiers died and missing in action. But even the Asian people come here and pay respect to our people. I had to run up to her. I go, no, my uncle here, he is a war hero. He was there fighting for this country. And speaking of the war heroes, did you know that there's a person named Jose Brattleboro? He was private in the Army's 34th Company of the Philippine Scouts. He was severely wounded while fighting off the rebel force in the Philippine Islands in 1911. And with only one hand, he fought the enemy until they retrieved. And he was the first Filipino received the Medal of Honor in the military. Do we know about it? No. Why? Because we're Asian. And during Korean War, Kurt Chuen Lee, he was the first Asian American Marine officer on November 2nd, 1950. Now, because of his Mandarin language speaking ability, he went on the single-man mission to locate the enemy and eventually confuse them. Things like those we don't hear about. Why? Because we're Asian, we don't talk about it. Because we think we're just quietly contributing to this society because it's part of our culture. Because there's only we, no I, no you. It's about unity. So, what can we do to stop the hate crimes, to stop the racial discrimination? Easy. I'm not asking you to do the rally, to do a big thing. Every single one of us, all we have to do is when we talk about the culture, we just have to let people know and educating them gradually. If you never met Asian people, go to Panda. Or come to me. Try to approach them to understand. But I have to tell you one thing though, what I really hate is when people come up to me and goes, hey, what's your nationality? USA? It doesn't matter what nationality, I'm USA. It's about my race. Okay, you all understand my culture. Culture is only part of it that making me who I am. But it's my experience and everything else that makes me as a whole person. So when you encounter an Asian person or people different race from you, don't see them with their background, their color. See them as who they are, because people are people. No matter where you are, no matter what color you are, but the characters are always going to be there. You go there, you will notice, oh, they're actually just like me. Every time I get to my job, I get to travel around the world. Every time I go there, first thing I do is I try out the local food. Why? Because food is something that connects people. I go there and I go, can you help me? And then I start trying to learn about their culture and become one of them. This is how we're supposed to live in harmony. When I was going to American Samoa on the flight, there were a couple of us from the bureau, and we were all quiet. In the back, I was sitting in the back, and there were some Samoan kids, and I had my little Game Boy with me. I started playing with the kids and started talking to the family. By the end of the trip, we actually had a party in the back of the airplane, and I was invited to go to their house after we landed. This is trying to make harmony, trying to understand. And this is how I deal with people with different culture, with different race. And I'm hoping that today, after here, when you hear someone talking about racial discrimination and stuff like that, try to educate them a little bit about what the Asian has done for the country. Try to educate them about, they're just people just like you and I. Nothing different. And that's all I have for you today. Any questions?
Thank you, Lisa. Emma. So many great points made and stories shared that I feel like is cultivating more sense of belonging, more sense of unity around here. Before, George over here, who provided us with sound very generously tonight, there's no electricity in this park. George is going to close our gathering with some music, which is another great way to experience unity. And please remember that, all the way down to our cells and the molecules, the atoms, we're vibrating with this shared energy, the shared wisdom here tonight. The water is always flowing with this wisdom as well. And so when we gather with other people, I hope that it spreads, because we're all made of the same elemental essences. We're all made of water and fire and earth and air. I'm going to turn this over to George now, and thank you so much for your presence. It's so valuable.
Thank you for pulling this together. I think it's important. We're not supposed to sing because it's COVID, right? So spread out a little bit. We're going to try something anyway, okay? You've all heard this before here. One thing about a zipper song is you can change the words to match what's going on. So it's one reason I stick with it. But we'll go with this one from Holly Near. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. Try it, please. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are all in this together. And we are singing, singing for our lives. We are all in this together. We are singing, singing for our lives. We belong here all together. And we are singing, singing for our lives. We all belong here together. And we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a peaceful, loving people. And we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a peaceful, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. Tracy, thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, everyone. And please, if you haven't spoken to any of the people gathering here tonight, please linger for a little while and socialize. And Emma is still here, and Lisa is still here. Thank you, EESHA. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, George. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.